This is Robert at Mayor Web again, and today we're going to look at the fourth installment here for QuikTest Education. And I'm going to go through some stuff very briefly. It's not going to be really comprehensive, but some people have asked about this kind of stuff, so I'm just going to spell it out here. QuikTest creation. QuikTest was created in 1988 as part of my bachelor's work, and it was created on an individual study basis, 3 credit hours, directly with the chairman of the psychology department. So he watched over everything that I did as I did it and okayed the work. There were 2 items or two tests out there. I think they're still out there from the Institute for Personality and Abilities Testing. One was for measurement of anxiety. The other one was for measurement of depression. Professional tools had to be the masters and above, I think, to use it. 45 items, and it took 45 minutes, 35 minutes at least. Up to like an hour and a half to do both these tests. Kind of cumbersome, had to have degrees to do it. Really limited who could use it. So I administered it a number of times, and I found that there were about 15 items on each test, anxiety and depression, that had pretty strong variable relationships. So they scored on a whole wide spectrum. So I chose those 15 items from each to create 30 items, put it together in QuikTest. I kind of summarized. Their items were sentences. They were long, drawn out, hard to understand or comprehend after you begin to read a number of them. It kind of gets muddy. I put them in extremely short phrases, or sometimes even one word, looking to extract exactly what that statement was trying to measure. So I created the 30 items for QuikTest out of that, and I then administered IPAT, anxiety, and depression to over 100 people, as well as QuikTest at the same time. So I did both of them. And then I did a correlation, Pearson-R correlation coefficient for the scores. And I found that my 15 items for anxiety correlated with their 45 items for anxiety. Measured at 90%. I measured 90% of what they were in 15 items, what they were measuring in 45. And for depression, it was 0.91, which is 91%. So I was able to get 90% accuracy out of 30 items instead of 90. And the test now takes 5 to 7 minutes to do and can be used by people who don't have degrees. So that was my intention, and that's exactly what I got. It's a little longer story than that, but people ask where it came from. Generally, this gives you an idea of where it came from. Now let's look at standardizing scores. You know that we set 100 to be the average and 10 to be the standardized deviation. Well, how in the world do we do that? Let me show you how we do that. There's, of course, raw scores, and each item has a scoring range of 0, if a person doesn't score at all, or up to 4 points. So 4 times 30, that's 120, or 4 times 15 actually for anxiety, 4 times 15 for depression, scoring range of 60 points. Now let's say we just reported to you client's raw score. Your client's raw score is 38. Well, does that really make any sense to you? Does a score of 38 mean anything to you? Not really. It's kind of a nebulous score. You know it's about 2/3 of the way towards 60, but is that good or is that bad? What we need is an average. So, of course, we have an average. And that average is, let's say it's 18. These are not actual averages and standard deviations. This is just for example purposes. Let's say the average is 18. Well, now we know a little bit more. Your client's score is 38. The average is 18. Your client is pretty substantially above average. So let's say this is anxiety. It's obvious your client has more anxiety than the average person who took the test. But we still don't know how bad that is. What we do then is subtract 18 from 38. And we find out that the client is 20 points higher than the average. Well, we're getting a little closer to understanding that this client is probably significantly elevated with his anxiety. Then the last tool we need here to understand how complex or how elevated it is the standard deviation. And for this, we're playing that the standard deviation is actually 8, because I want to show you what this means. In order to find out how deviated this person's score is, we divide 20 by the 8. And what do we get? We get the fact that the client, 20 divided by 8, the client is 2.5 standard deviations above average. We'll understand what that means when we look at a bell curve here in a few minutes. But you are familiar with 100 being the average, 10 being the standard deviation. And let me show you how we do that. Because we can, 2.5 standard deviations, if you understand that, that's really elevated. Okay, it's elevated way, way, way above normal. But what you're used to seeing is this. We take that 2.5, which is the number of standard deviations, we multiply it by 10, and we get 25. And you can probably already see what's going to happen here. What we do then is take and add 100 to that score, and we get the score of 125. Now, if you've been using QuikTest for a while, you understand that a score of 125 is very high. It'd be the same as saying 2.5 standard deviations. But why remember all these point this and point that when we can just simply multiply by 10 to get rid of the point, to get rid of the decimal point, and then add the 100 on because that's the average. Now we have a simple score, scoring range from 80 roughly to 140, and you understand what all these numbers mean. Let's take this one step farther, and let's go down here and pull up this technical standard deviation. This is called the Z chart. So we get 2 pages here. This is a normal bell-shaped curve. And you can see that it slopes up kind of slowly, but then it shoots up fast. And then you get the same thing down on the other side. What we know, and this is the average right here, is the average right in the middle. One standard deviation is, it's probably right about here. That would be a score of 90. A score of 110 would be on the other side of the same place. What we know from looking at these numbers, and let me show you, the 0 is going to be a score of 100. It's 0 standard deviations from the mean. 50% of all people will be on the left-hand side. 50% will be on the right-hand side. So if we go down to this chart, we look at -1. Okay, we see that, and this is -1 standard deviation, the equivalent of 90. We see that 15% of all people score below that, which means that 34.13% score between -1 right here and 0 right here. There's 34% right here. See, roughly 15 plus 35 is going to be 50. So between 90, a score of 90, which is 1 standard deviation, and 100, there's 34.13%. That also means that there is 34.13% between 100 and 110. It comes out to a total of 68%. 68% of all people fall between a score of 90 and 110. Now, this is 2 out of 3 people. If you got 100 people in a room, you ask them to stand up. You ask 68 people to stand up. There's going to be a lot of people standing up. It's going to look like most of the people stood up. That's why we consider a normal range between 90 and 110. Now, those people who drop off to the left even farther and go down to 85 or 80 or whatever, that's good. That's out of the danger range. Okay, the danger range here is 15.87%. That's how much there is between one standard deviation and the end of the chart. Only 15% of the people score above a score of 110. That would be this white area here, although that's probably about 2 standard deviations. 1 standard deviation would be here. 15% of all people score in that range. That's why we consider 115, or 115, which is down here. 93% of all people score below a score of 115. 6.68% of the people score above a score of 115. That's pretty substantial. Now, do the same thing. 100 people in a room. Have 6 of them stand up. That's how many people score above 115 in a normal population. You have to understand the population you're dealing with is not normal. They are elevated in anxiety and depression. So you're going to see more than 6 stand up. Your goal is to get them down to the place where they're between 90 and 110 or below 110. So this is going to be on the test. 68% of all people score between 90 and 110. This is also going to be on the test. Okay? Right here. 2 standard deviations. What is that? That's a score of 120. Only 2.28%. About 2%. That's on the test. About 2% of all people score above a score of 120. When you find a score above 120, it's serious business. I'm going to include this link right here in the description box. So you'll be able to click on that if you want, save it, and then you'll have it if you want it, if you want to look it over more. So that's it for number 4.